Genesis, verse number 9. We were introduced, by the way, to Noach, or Noah. Let's call him Noah because that's how it's written here. At the end of last week's Torah portion, where it said, "V'Noach matzachem be'enei Hashem," that Noah found favor in God's eyes, which is the contrast, against the backdrop of corruption. We have at least one guy who God says, all right, this is a righteous man. And that theme continues right here at the beginning. All right, so the Torah says, and you can all see my screen, yes, just confirming, thumbs up if you can see the screen. Okay, thank you. These are the generations of Noah, which essentially means these are his children. We're about to list them. Noah was a righteous man. He was perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God. And that's such a loaded statement. This middle statement, actually, he was perfect in his generations. There are two explanations of this. One commentary, both in the Talmud. One Talmudic master says, what does it mean? It means even in his generation of corruption, he was perfect. Can you imagine how good he would be in Abraham's generation? Imagine, if you live in a world of corruption and you're still a good person, can you imagine if you lived in a time of decency and morality? You would be off the charts good. And the other guy says, no. No, what it means is only relative to his generation was he righteous, but had he been in Abraham's generation, he would be garnished, he would be nothing. Two completely different understandings of this verse that says he was righteous in his generation. You can learn it for the good, even in his generation he was righteous, or for the negative, only in his generation was he deemed righteous. So you and I get to choose which Noah we connect with. All right, and then it says Noah walked with God, which means that essentially he was monotheistic and righteous, etc. He was with God, on God's team. All right, what about his generations? Right? We said these are his generations, these are his children. So where are the kids? All right, the next verse. And Noah had 3 sons. And by the way, these sons later on in the narrative, it gets interesting with these 3 sons. But, all right, what are their names? Shem, the father of the Semites, Shem. Cham, we had this last week, I think even. Cham and Yafet. Shem, Cham, or Ham, whatever, and Yafet, or Japheth. Go with the Hebrew here, Yafet. Okay, so those are the 3 sons. By the way, I mentioned last week, Noah's wife, her name was Naamah. She was the one daughter of Lamech, the guy who had the 3 sons who were the pioneers and the innovators. Remember the innovators, the guy who invented nomadic cattle rearing and instruments and weaponry. Anyway, so the sister was Naamah, and the sister Naamah marries Noah. They have 3 sons, Shem, Cham, and Yafet. And these 3 sons are also at this point married, and now let's get into the narrative. Now, the Torah resets the story. The earth was corrupt before God, and the earth became full of robbery. By the way, this is my running commentary. These stories are so rich. And so were some people before the robbery. But anyway, I digress. Here's the point. According to our sages, what was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, with regard to this generation? It was the human-on-human violence and robbery. It wasn't as much about the people, not being monotheistic or serving idols, which also is true. They were idol worshippers, as we explained last week. Primarily, the issue was the human-on-human not getting along, the robbery. And God saw the earth, verse 12, God saw the earth, and behold, it had become corrupted. For all flesh had corrupted its way on the earth. And all flesh means including even, as I said last week, even the animals. All flesh, on some level, even the animals became corrupted at this time period. So, verse 13 is a pivotal point where God turns to Noah and says the following. God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me. In other words, basically saying, I've decided. God says to Noah, let me let you know on a little secret here. The end of all flesh has come before me. For the earth has become full of robbery because of them, humanity. And behold, I am destroying them from the earth. Make for yourself an ark By the way, the Hebrew word for ark is teva. You can see it over here, tevat. Well, here's tevat. Atze gopher. It means a teva of gopher wood. Anybody know what gopher wood is? No? Okay, so it's a type of wood, we're assuming. In that case, if no one knows, then I'll just make up something. I'm kidding. It's a wood. All right. If you want to build an ark, it's good. It's good wood, I'm assuming. All right. So make for yourself an ark of gopher wood. You should make the ark with compartments. Okay, with compartments, and you shall caulk it on both inside and outside with pitch. Look. The extent of my boat building is, I think I probably read Curious George. Remember that one? That Curious George one? Where he takes the newspapers and makes them into boats? No? There was whatever. You can make a hat and a boat. Whatever. Point is like this. You're taking wood and he's basically waterproofing it. He's putting pitch, whatever that is, some sort of sticky, waterproof substance, caulking it on the inside and the outside. Okay, it's got to be waterproof. There's a flood after all. Now, how big is this ark? I'm glad you asked. Verse 15. And this is the size you shall make it. Look how big this is. 300 cubits is the length of the ark, 50 cubits its breadth, and 30 cubits its height. Let me explain what that is in feet. Now, every cubit is about 1.5 feet. That's how much a cubit is. So 300 cubits means 450 feet. All right, so 400 and approximately. There's different opinions. A cubit, according to many, is the distance between the elbow, okay, and the edge of from your elbow to the edge of your fingers. Now, obviously, everyone's got a different size of the arm, but approximately, I think it's about 18 inches. Some say 2 feet, whatever, somewhere in that range. It's about 1.5 feet. So look, we're talking about a boat, an ark that's 400, and it was square, by the way. It wasn't people make it aerodynamic. It wasn't aerodynamic. There's no indication that it was made in a boat-shaped thing. It was not meant, by the way, the reason why is because, think about it. Most ships, all ships, are meant to go from point A to point B. What was the point of the ark? To float. That's it. It wasn't meant to go anywhere. It's not like, Noah, I want you to set sail from the Bahamas to Spain. That wasn't the objective here. The objective was to just float. So it was a square ark, approximately 450 feet long by 75 feet wide. I mean, we're talking about a football field is what? A football field is 100 yards, which is 300 feet. So imagine, it's longer than a football field, right? I think wider than a football field, and 30 cubits, which is about 45 feet high. How tall is your average house? Like a 2-story home? Do we know? Anybody know? Who knows? Whatever. Anyway, it was a big boat. Look, you had to fit all the animals in there. It had to be big, right? You have a floating zoo along with people. Okay, so that's it was a big ship. Now, by the way, at any point, please jump in with any facts or figures or anecdotes. Feel free to jump in. Okay, now check out the next verse. Check out the next verse, 16. You shall make a skylight for the ark. Skylight. In the Hebrew, it's called sohar. Sohar ta'aseh l'teva. A skylight. So what's interesting is, and Donna, I think you'll find this very interesting. Sohar. Oh, I'll pull up Rashi and you'll see why I say this. Here we go. Rashi. Sohar. Look at this. Some say it was a window, and some say it was a precious stone which gave them light. Look at that. Some say it was a window. That's the translation that we have here. A skylight is like kind of a window. Some, by the way, bad idea to make a skylight without a protection on the top of your ark. If you're Noah, bad idea. You're going to get a lot of rain in there. Just saying. Some say, though, it was a window, but some say it was an even tova, a precious stone that was luminous. Now, obviously,
Rabbi,
yeah, go ahead.
So the 12 crystals that we're using in our kit for the bracelet, so those are crystals this time as opposed to gemstones. So they have that transparency where the light goes. Yes.
Beautiful. So now the question here is, well, which stone was it, right? Like, what was this magical stone? And here's the bigger question. Is this a stone that produced its own light? Like, what does it mean, stone that gave them light? Did they have outside light? Did they not have outside light? Because if they didn't have outside light, right, even if it's a crystal or even a diamond, if there's no outside light, right, what light is it refracting? It's not gonna shine brilliantly if there's no outside light. So look, was it a miraculous stone? Does it mean that there was anyway light from the outside? Because there were other windows, and this was a light that kind of shone from the inside. And if so, then what was the point if they had light anyway from the outside? A lot of questions. I don't know that I'm going to answer the questions, but you should know that there's a lot of discussion. I'm just toggling Rashi off, which is why I'm scrolling. There's a lot of commentary on the magical, mysterious Tzohar. That's the word right here. It's Tzohar. I'm highlighting it in verse 16. Again, in our English, you can almost, you would never know, right? You should make a skylight. All right, but it's not so simple.
Zohar means, what Zohar means, skylight?
Tzohar means light. It's kind of like the book Zohar, but it's spelled differently. This is Tzohar with a tzaddik, and that's Zohar with a zayin. But it actually means, as Rashi says, a very similar thing. It means light. It means you should make a light. But how do you make a light? Either through a window or through a stone. Those are the two primary opinions about what the Tzohar actually was. But literally it means make a light. Not skylight, it means make a light. But how do you make a light? Two opinions. All right, so you should make always two opinions, right? How do you do anything? There's going to be a few opinions. So you should make a skylight or a light for the ark. And let's continue verse 16. And to a cubit you shall finish it to the top, which means that at the top it did go, it seems, at an angle. You with me? To a cubit you shall finish it to the top. Sounds like it is coming to some sort of 1 cubit space on top, and then it goes down from there. And the entrance, I guess that makes sense if it's raining. You probably don't want a flat roof, and all the rain kind of collects on it. You want it to roll down. This is basic art construction 101 over here. And the entrance of the ark you shall place in its side. You shall make it with bottom compartments, second-story compartments, and third-story compartments. In other words, make 3 floors within this ark. By the way, from the beginning, it said the ark should be made with compartments, and now it clarifies what does it mean compartments? Not different rooms, but different floors. So 3 floors: bottom floor, bottom story, second story, and third story. What was on the various floors? I believe supplies and waste and garbage, all the stuff, what was on the bottom. The animals were on the middle, and the people were on the top, not the deck, but on the top compartment, I believe. Okay, let's continue. 17. And by the way, the people had to take care of the animals for that duration. Unmute yourself. Trivia question. I know I'm getting ahead of the story because it hasn't happened yet, but how long do you think they spent on the ark? Trivia question. How long do you think they spent on the ark? Who's got it? Got to unmute. How long?
A year?
Yes.
A year?
About a year, yes. It was about a year, a full year, pretty much, that they spent on the ark. It's a long time. It wasn't just like, a week or two. It's a long time, or even 40 days. There was a build-up, and then the water, and then the flood, and then it receded for a while. It took a while. Okay, so let's continue inside. And, verse 17, God says, Behold, I am bringing the flood, water upon the earth, to destroy all flesh in which there is the spirit of life from beneath the heavens. All that is upon the earth will perish. Verse 18, and I will set up my covenant with you, Noah, and you shall come into the ark. Now listen to this. You and your sons, and your wife and your sons' wives with you. This, our sages tell us, indicates that they were prohibited on the ark from engaging in intimate activities. As we see, it's separated here by gender. You and your sons, and then your wife and your sons' wives. Whereas, I know this is jumping later, but when God tells Noah to leave the ark and go back to the earth, he says, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. So kind of coupling them back together. But here there was, and this was not only, by the way, this wasn't only true for human beings, this was a prohibition for all of the animals. It wasn't right. It was, as our sages tell us, it's not right in the time of destruction to be engaged in, intimate pleasures, etc. Let's continue. Verse number 19. And of all living things, of all flesh, 2 of each shall you bring into the ark to preserve alive with you. They shall be male and female. So bring 2, a male and a female, of every animal, every living creature, in order that they survive. 20, verse 20, of the fowl after its kind, and of the animals after their kind, of every creeping thing upon the ground after its kind. Can you imagine? Every bug, that's what he was told. Can you imagine Noah collecting stuff? 2 of each shall come to you to preserve life, to preserve alive.
Rabbi?
He had to take the mosquitoes. Yeah, sorry.
Why did I think that it was 7 of each clean animal and 2 of each non-clean? Am I wrong about that?
You are correct. 7 couples of the kosher animals. That is specified soon. Yes.
Oh.
But the baseline is at least a male and a female for the purpose of continuing the species after the flood. At least a male and a female of every living creature should be taken to the ark. And you, but you're right, we'll get there soon. And you, God says to Noah, take for yourself of every food that is eaten, you gotta have food, and gather it into you, and it shall be for you and for them to eat. So an interesting anecdote, there is a place on earth, I don't remember where, I know it's like maybe Norway or something, where they keep the seeds. You know about this? They're keeping seeds just in case. Seeds of every type of vegetation that's known, every type of food. They keep it preserved and locked in like a very special place, underground in a bunker or whatever it is, just in case things go sideways. At least there'll be, these seeds will survive, or something like that. Anyway, it reminds me of that. Verse 22, and Noah did according to all that God had commanded him, so he did. And by the way, that's considered to be a good thing. He followed God's orders. It's also considered to be not a good thing, because he only followed God's orders. What didn't he do? He didn't rally the troops and try to tell the people to change their ways. He didn't work on fixing his environment. He just worked what God said. Protect yourself and take the animals. That's what he did. All right. Let's jump into the second reading, because after all, today is Monday. So let's learn some more. And the Lord said to Noah, come into the ark. So he built the ark. By the way, you know how long it took him to build the ark? 120 years. 120 years to build the ark. Yep. And the Lord said to Noah, come into the ark, you and all your household. For it is you that I have seen as a righteous man before me in this generation. Okay, makes sense. So far, so good. And now we get what Ray said before. Of all the clean animals, and this is referring to kosher animals, you shall take for yourself 7 pairs, a male and its mate. And all of the animals that are not clean, just 1 pair. 2 animals, or two entities, a male and its mate. What's interesting is what's the reason why he was supposed to take more kosher animals. The implication is, and this is how Noah understood it, is that from those animals he will be bringing offerings and sacrifices after the flood is over, and that's why he needed them more. Okay, verse number 3. Also, of the fowl of the heavens, 7 pairs, male and female, to keep seed alive on the face of the earth. Okay, I guess birds, kosher birds, etc. Now, for in another 7 days, I will make it rain upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and I will blot out all beings that I have made off the face of the earth. And once again, the very obedient Noah did according to all that the Lord had commanded him. And again, you can read that two ways, either in a positive way or in a negative way. He did exactly what he was told to do. Great. Wonderful. He didn't go against what God said, so that's great. But at the same time, what didn't he do? He didn't go above and beyond either. He didn't go out and try to rally the troops and change things. And Noah was 600 years old, and the flood came about water upon the earth. And Noah went in, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him into the ark because of the flood waters. And our sages tell us that even Noah, who was communicating with God, even Noah who was righteous, even Noah who walked with God, even Noah who followed God's orders to the T, even he didn't 100% believe that this was going to happen. And that's why it says that first it says that the flood came upon about water upon the earth. In other words, first the waters came, and only then did he go into the ark because of the flood waters. In other words, even at the last minute, he was like, is it really going to happen? Maybe it's just a storm. Maybe it's going to blow over. It's only when he saw it was the real deal, it's only then that he went in and closed the door. Of all the clean, let's continue, 8. Of all the clean beasts, and of all the beasts that are not clean, and of the fowl, and all that creeps upon the earth, everyone, they all came into the ark, 2 by 2. They came to Noah, to the ark, and this is probably one of the most famously depicted scenes of the Torah, right? The animals coming 2 by 2 into the ark, male and female, as God had commanded Noah. Okay, and it came to pass after the 7 days, that God had said in 7 days the flood's going to happen. It happened after those 7 days that indeed the flood waters were upon the earth. Once again, Torah dramatically tells us in verse 11, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on this day, all the springs of the great deep were open, split open. Now there's water came from below, like wells and hot springs, right? There's water underneath. So the waters came from the depths of the earth and from above. And the windows of the heavens also opened up. So there was water. It wasn't just rainwater from above. It was waters from below and waters from above. And the rain, verse 12. And the rain was upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. Our sages tell us that it started off as rain. Before it became a flood, it started off as rain. And that was an opportunity for the people that had heard about what... Noah was building a big, big ark. That was a big ark. You would imagine that some of the neighbors would have said, hey Noah, what you doing for the last 120 years? Like, what's the Sunday project? What are you doing? And he would have told them, just building an ark in case the world gets destroyed, just no big deal. So, you would imagine that Noah, even if he wasn't proactive, he probably answered a few questions, he probably fielded a few queries as to his work. And in that process, people knew. And people did know about the prediction of the flood. And God therefore sends rain first. And at first, our sages tell us, it could have been, had the people said, this is it. Sorry, we're going to change, we're going to improve. At that point, God would have pulled back on the decree. It says, Judaism believes that even if something has been decreed from above, if it's a negative decree, it can be pulled back and rescinded and stopped and averted. That's what we believe. So it started off as rain to give people a chance but clearly the message wasn't taken, and the rain turned into a flood. 40 days and 40 nights. On this very day, verse 13, on this very day, which very day? The second, Noach's 600th year, second month, 17th day of that month. So on this very day, Noah came, Shem, Cham, and Yafet came, Noah's sons, and Noah's wife, Naamah, and his sons' 3 wives. They all came with them into the ark. They, the people, and every beast after its kind, and every domestic animal after its kind, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth after its kind, and every fowl after its kind, every bird of every wing. And they all came to Noah, to the ark, 2 by 2 of all flesh, in which there is a spirit, the spirit. Male and female of all flesh came, as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. In other words, who sealed the door, the outside of the door? Right? You can't seal it from the outside. What are you going to do? Like, how are you going to do it? I doubt they had, like, submarine technology with, I don't even know what it's called, but like sealed doors and, iron and rubber and whatever. So who sealed it? The Vayiskar Hashem Ba'ado, and God closed it in on the inhabitants of the ark. Can you imagine floating in the ark? I mean, you can't imagine what went on outside the ark, right? I mean, that's too horrific to think about. But imagine what happened inside the ark, right? Talk about being stuck somewhere, right? You had people, few people, not that many, 8 people. You had, right, Noah, 3 sons, that's 4 men and then 4 women. That's it. So 8 people on the ark. You had all these animals. The people had to take care of the animals. They had to feed them, right? They brought food onto the ark. And it's a lot of packing. It's a lot of food prep. Yeah. You go away. You go away for the evening, and a good Jewish mother is giving you like bags of food. It's like, can you imagine, like, for a full year? Naamah must have been cooking. Maybe that's why it took 120 years. I mean, maybe Noah was also grilling. I don't know what they were doing, but imagine how many food parcels to create. Anyway, bottom line is they were on the ark with basically a miniature version or whatever, like a snapshot of the entire earth. And so the Kabbalists tell us that it's like a mini Mashiach. It's like a mini Messianic era. What's Mashiach? Everyone's getting along. Everyone's on the same page. Everyone's in the same boat, right? The animals are getting along. Human beings are getting along. Human beings with animals are getting along. Everyone's getting along. Everyone's, in one environment. Listen, the truth is, we're always in one environment, but half the time we're fighting with each other. But on the ark, it was a peaceful existence. I mean, that could have gone sour pretty quickly. 1 second, right? So the point is that it's emblematic of Mashiach. It was like the energy of Mashiach, where the wolf will lie with the lamb, and everything, all the animals got along, and people got along, and so there was a beauty there as well. Yes, Ray, go ahead.
Didn't one of the giants hang out outside the ark or something? Og, maybe?
Oh yeah, Og the jolly giant also hung on the side of the ark. Og was, at that point at least, Og was righteous, and he was also spared, which means there was a total of 9 people that were saved, 9 human beings in addition to the animals and all the other things that were saved. Maybe had there been a minion, had there been one more, the whole thing could have been averted. But as I said before, Noah didn't really reach out to others. He answered questions according to our sages, but he didn't really go out of his way. Okay, I want to do one more.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, we know how many creatures are on the earth.
Yeah.
And if we take this literally, the ark would have been huge. It would have had to have been huge for all those creatures to fit. Not all of them, but just 2 of each one.
I don't know. I've never done the math. I have no idea.
This ark could not enough. It would have been, yeah.
We got to break it down. We got to look at how many different core species are there, not derivatives, because who knows how everything could have evolved over the last 50, 700, 6,000 years. How many core species are there? I don't know. Ich weiß nicht. I mean, we're dealing with a big ark, so the question is, what is that like? Listen, I can imagine in my mind that it seems like it's too big, but until I break it down and actually do the math, like how many core species are there? What are we talking about? How much space? I don't know. It's conjecture. I'm with you on it being, it's sounding like a lot. I don't know. Let's do the math. I mean, it's a project. It's an activity. Let's run the numbers. I don't know. Let's see. All right. Yeah. Yeah, Donna.
We spoke about Og a while ago, and I was always intrigued. Do you think that's where the word Ogra came from? Which in our language means a big bad guy.
Yeah, I think so. It seems like it would fit, like the genre, like the title, the description fits. I can't say definitively, but Og was definitely, he was the forerunner of all, giants and whatever, that sort of thing. He started off righteous, but he didn't end up righteous. Ended up being killed by Moses, we discussed, later on in the Torah. All right, let's do a few more verses, and then we'll close it out today. Because again, tomorrow I believe that I am not going to be able to do it. Wednesday I'll be back, not in person but online, but I don't think tomorrow. So let's get a little bit into tomorrow's reading. Plus, we're in the middle of a flood here. We can't. I don't want to leave you out to dry. Is that an expression or something? Chapter 7, 17. Verse 17. Now, the flood was 40 days upon the earth. And the waters increased, and they lifted the ark, and it rose off the earth. So imagine, the ark started on the ground, and then it lifted. And the waters became powerful, and they increased very much upon the earth. And the ark moved upon the waters. And the waters became exceedingly powerful upon the earth. And all the lofty mountains that were under the heavens were covered up. 15 cubits above did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered up. And all flesh perished that moved upon the earth, among the fowl, and among the cattle, and among the beasts, and among all creeping creatures that creep upon the earth, and all mankind. Everything that had the breath of the spirit of life in its nostrils, all that were on the dry land, died. And the flood blotted out all beings that were upon the face of the earth, from man to animal to creeping things, and to the fowl of the heavens, and they were blotted out from the earth, and only Noah and those with him in the ark survived. And the water prevailed upon the earth 150 days. I want to explain what that means. For 40 days, the waters below and the waters above rushed in. After those 40 days, the waters sat for 150 days. And then the waters began receding. But as you know, if you've ever, filled a bathtub, it doesn't recede immediately. It also takes time to recede and to fully dry out. And that's why I said before, Ray mentioned it as well, that the total span of time was about a year. Because from the time that the rain started falling, and then the waters stayed for a while, 3 months. No, sorry, 150 days would be 5 months or so, right? And then it starts receding. We're talking about close to a year. Okay, so I think let's leave it over here. I'll share with you one on a positive note. I'll share with you a positive message, and then next time we get together, which is going to be Wednesday, please God, we're going to start with chapter 8, which is when Noah is told to leave the ark, or the process of disembarking, all puns intended, disembarking begins. But now let's focus on this for a moment. I want to share with you, like I said, one more thing, and that is we see that when the flood picks up, verse 17, the flood waters lifted the ark. And as the Kabbalists explain, this is true in our lives as well. It's not just a story about a boat and a flood, an ark and a flood, and Noah and animals, but it's also the story of our lives as well. You see, we all live in a yellow submarine. No, I'm kidding. We all live in a world that inundates us with material challenges and struggles and pressures. And those are likened to Mayim, they're referred to in Jewish literature as Mayim Rabim, many fierce waters. It's like, somebody says, I'm drowning in whatever it is, concern, debt, whatever it is, drowning. We use that euphemism even in English to indicate struggle, challenge, and turbulence. So the idea of a flood is not just, an ancient story, but it's also the present day story. And hopefully none of us should be in that situation. But we all know what that means, to one extent or another, to be in a situation where it seems like life and the physical challenges of life can feel overwhelming. So there's a few things to mention. Number one, there's always a teva, there's always an ark at hand, because the Hebrew word for ark, teva, also is the same Hebrew word as the word for word. And I know I'm telling you information that probably doesn't make sense, but here's what I mean. The Hebrew, there's a Hebrew word, and the word is teva. Teva. That can mean ark. It can also mean word. W-O-R-D. Word. So teva means ark and it means word. Now the connection between those, like on an energy level, the etymological connection, language connection is because like a word, language is a container, like an ark, like a box that holds meaning. Right? If you want to convey meaning, how do you package? And I have an idea in my head. How do I communicate that? How do I deliver that to you in a box, the box of words? So anyway, I'm just giving you the conceptual connection between boxes and words. But the Baal Shem Tov says, the founder of the Chassidic movement, taught us that when life becomes challenging, when the waters are rising, jump in the ark. Open up a siddur, say some words of prayer. Open up a Chumash, book of Torah, and study the words of Torah. Right? It's about connecting to the words, to God's words, that can help protect us, soothe us from the floods that can rage outside of us. That's one message. The second message is, what happens when the floods do hit? If you're inside the ark, not only are you not, harmed, God forbid, by it, but it actually causes the ark to rise. It actually lifts up the ark to a higher place. And what that means is that if we're able to find the proper box, word, anchor, whatever adjective you want to use, or imagery you think of, if we're able to find the right centering, the right meditation, the right prayer, the right thing to study, then not only are we not harmed by the challenge, but the challenge actually can bring out something deeper within us and can lift us higher than had we not experienced the challenge. As I said, countless times, we don't ask for challenges, but when they come our way, we hope that we're in an ark, or at least we can find one nearby, and we hope that through the process we're actually lifted higher, not just not harmed, God forbid, but actually lifted higher through the challenge, through that experience. So those are just some deeper Chassidic, mystical insights into the experience of the ark. It's an incredible story, and I should mention, where's my brochure? I don't know where it is right now, but it's one of the 6 topics, 6 stories that we'll be exploring in our new course, Secrets of the Bible, starting next week, Tuesday night and Thursday, which is pretty amazing. So if you want to learn more, even more, about the story of the flood and Noah and the animals and all that stuff, next week we're going to be exploring it. We're still exploring it this week, don't worry, but even more, even deeper and more comprehensively next week when we have all the texts and the sources in front of us. One thing to mention is that the course Secrets of the Bible, and I know many of you are already signed up and joining, but just to mention that the goal of this course coming up is to look at the stories pretty much from the get-go, from a deeper level, from a deeper perspective, to understand what's the deeper insight. Let's learn this as adults and not just as kids with a basic understanding of the story. Let's really get to the heart of the story and understand what the message is. So hopefully we have at least a few of those insights today, the idea of having the ark. We all need an ark. We all need the ark because the world is kind of meshuggah sometimes. So we need the ark, and we can rise up. So even if the Braves lose Game 7, right? Nonetheless, we have an ark. We don't get too down with the downs, with the lows. All right. Yes, Ray, go ahead. I see you unmuted.
What about? Oh, I'm unmuted.
No. You're good. I hear you. Yeah.
What about the ark that was built in Colorado? Somebody built a replica of the ark in Colorado.
I don't even know. That's interesting.
Yes.
Yes.
Is that a thing? Okay. Cool.
It's a thing.
Honestly, if someone built that replica, so if they built the replica, then we can try it out. We can see. Mark, to your question, let's bring. Listen, all we need to do is marry, right, that ark with a zoo and see what's going on. By the way, not advocating for zoos, whatever. I know the controversy about zoos, whatever. But nonetheless, there's got to be a way to figure it out. Yeah, you would think. Anyway, but that's interesting. I didn't know about the Colorado ark. Listen, I would imagine that at some point somebody would have done it. So I guess it makes sense that somebody did it. Can't go wrong.
Ari,
Yeah.
Years ago, when I studied religions of the world, one thing we learned, I hate to say this, is that the story of the flood is not unique to the Jews. That there was a story, I believe it was Gilgamesh, and it was indeed a flood. Maybe there was Babylonian. This was maybe before that, but it wasn't unique to the Jews. So I was just curious how you'd respond to that.
I don't know. I'm not. I don't know how to respond because I don't know the other stories. I don't know when they're from. I don't know what they say. I don't know. Ich weiß nicht. I would say if many civilizations are reporting a flood, so maybe it happened. I mean, like maybe that's more corroboration. There's different ways to look at that. To look at that fact. But my first answer is, like I said before, I don't know enough to be able to. To be able to effectively comment or respond. I don't know. It would require more research. But I will tell you that I think that, either way, the powerful lessons and the truths that we're going to continue to explore this week and next week in the new course, I think those certainly stand the test of time and can bring a lot of meaning to our lives. All right. Good.
Are we headed to class Wednesday night?
Oh, so great question. The wedding is Wednesday night. So I'm working on, and I believe the mishpacha will be a little bit, not so happy if I'm like live streaming from the chuppah. So here's the thing. I actually don't know what time the chuppah is, but it's possible that it's at that time. So I am working now on having somebody take over the class because there's not really time to reschedule it. So hopefully I'm going to have somebody. I'm pretty confident that I'll be able to find somebody to do it. In fact, I'm thinking I could probably find somebody, a friend that's teaching it, maybe even in another city at the same time, and just give their Zoom link, and then that's it. I mean, I'll probably tell them that I'm doing that. But surprise, we got like 20 people from Atlanta, 25 people from Atlanta jumping in. No, but I'm working on a plan for that for Wednesday night. So again, just as far as the schedule for this class, so tomorrow, likely not, for Daily Power Parsha. Wednesday, yes. Thursday should be yes. Friday should be yes. I'll do it remotely, probably from my phone. Wednesday night, not me. Somebody will teach it. I can't promise. We're gonna make it happen. We're gonna get an option. That's for sure. All right, good. So great to see everybody and great to study with you all. Hope everyone is doing well and staying healthy and staying happy and staying positive. And remember, in case of emergency, enter your ark. Find your ark, whatever your go-to ark is, something connective, something with letters and language, something that connects you with something higher, and connect. By the way, along those lines, I just remembered tonight, or I just thought to mention it, tonight, of course, is our Jewish meditation session, first of 2 sessions with Rabbi Wolf from Australia. So that will be a great opportunity to learn, study, connect, and meditate, and enter an ark. So tonight, I'm looking forward to it. Entering the ark tonight, 8 p.m. IntownJewishAcademy.org/meditation for more details. All right, great to see you all, and stay healthy. See you soon. Bye, everyone. Take care.